call the meeting to order. The time is 8:04, and welcome to the West Hartford Public Safety Committee meeting. This committee meeting will be available for live viewing on the WHCI YouTube channel as a virtual meeting. Today is Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Happy New Year to everybody once again. And I will recognize everybody who is on the virtual screen. This morning, we have Town Manager Rick Ledwith. We have our Mayor Sherry Cantor, our Chief of Police Vernon Riddick, Counselor Poland. We have the Chair of our Civilian Police Review Board, Alinda Morales. We have AC Tierra. We have Chief Priest, Counselor Davidoff, Counselor Zdanowicz. We have AC Riccabon. We have Fire Marshal Grimaldi, and I believe we have Sergeant Giacomino. Is that correct? And a couple of others who are joining us this morning. Before I continue, what I would like to do is take my point of privilege and ask for a brief moment of silence for our fallen firefighter from North Haven, which is Mateos Wirtz, who was buried yesterday, who lost his life during his line of duty. Just a reminder of how dangerous our public safety leaders and officials and men and women do every single day. So if we can just take that moment, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder of what our men and women do every time they hear that call or receive that phone call. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for both November 2nd and December 7th. And I would ask that we receive the minutes with the necessary corrections. Mr. Town Manager and Jarida, I would like to point out that there was a correction under, where did I see it? I want to say, was it December 7th? Just bear with me. No, I don't see it. Oh, okay, so it's under future agenda items, under A, where we state Chief Riddick requested the chair. So that should be the chair of the Public Review Board, attend and give thoughts and insights on the complaint she and the committee had reviewed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will make those corrections.
All right, thank you. All right, now we will move to communications. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Town Manager, but before I do so, I do want to just say a brief comment in light of everything that we've experienced the end of 2022 within the past week or two, the number of issues, unfortunate accidents that the town has experienced, and how important public safety is to each and every one of us, and the steps that we have taken as town staff, leaders, and the community coming together to address this issue. So I'm just going to turn it over to you, Rick, just to discuss some of the things that I know you and the team have been doing and what we've all been doing in a collaborative effort.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And you're absolutely right. Over the last 2 weeks, obviously, we've experienced some significant tragic accidents throughout town. And certainly any loss of life on our streets is unacceptable. And, You will, I know the mayor will be presenting a resolution at Tuesday night's council meeting where we will be initiating a Vision Zero action plan, which essentially the premise of Vision Zero, and it's a concept that we are seeing throughout the country. Some larger cities have implemented Vision Zero. The city of Stamford did it most recently in Connecticut in the fall. So we would be joining the city of Stamford as that next community in Connecticut to implement Vision Zero. But essentially, the premise of Vision Zero is that traffic deaths are preventable. And through Vision Zero, we would commit to eliminate all traffic fatalities within a defined time period. So that's zero traffic fatalities. So through the mayor's resolution, we would implement a task force, which would total around 15 to 16 people. It would include half staff. So that would include members of our police department, members of our engineering department, members of our public works department, members of our equity advancement department. And we would have half resident volunteers. So individuals who have some background in planning, traffic planning, roles aligned with kind of the mission of this task force. And we would work to create a Vision Zero action plan, which would take up to 12 to 18 months to complete. This action plan would establish mission and goals, both short-term and long-term. We would have a web page dedicated to up-to-date crash information. This task force would also include public meetings with the opportunity for the entire community to provide feedback on our collective work. And this would be similar to the outreach we did for the center infrastructure plan with Stantec, which was, as we all know, focused on the center. This would be focused on our entire community. This would be town-wide. Last week, we issued an RFP to hire a consultant to conduct a public roadway safety plan. This consultant would work with our task force on the action plan. I mentioned that the action plan would take about a year to complete and would eliminate all fatalities within a defined time period. But this doesn't mean that there are not things that we can do in the short term with regards to potential road design, speed reduction solutions, particularly along roads where the most recent accidents occurred. So we will have an immediate focus on Boulevard, Mohegan, Simsbury Road, while also taking closer looks at streets like Fern and Asylum and Albany. So it's a very long-term oriented plan, but we will have the opportunity to have immediate short-term changes to some specific roads in the immediate future. So that's something we would be committed to doing even while that action plan is being developed over the next year. So I don't want folks to think that this is this long-term plan that will take 10 years to get to zero fatalities. It's something that we would have immediate potential solutions implemented within the next 12 months while that action plan is being created. As I mentioned, equity advancement would be involved in this. Equity will play an integral role in this plan to ensure that our entire town is represented. So it's from the southeast corner of the town to the northwest corner of town and everywhere in between. So that's, I'll pause there and through you, Madam Chair, can turn things over to the mayor if she wanted to add to any of my comments.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. So I should have had Olinda go first for the communication for the police review board. And I'm not sure, Olinda, if you have a commitment after. So if it's okay, can we pivot over to you and then we can come back to the mayor and any questions?
I have set up, I took time to be present here between 8 and 9:30. So I don't want to disrupt your agenda. I can wait my turn, or if you wish, I can start now.
Mayor, how do you feel?
If I can just build on Rick's, I don't have much. I think Mr. Ledwith did a really good job of summarizing what the Vision Zero goals are. So, Ms. Morales, if you don't mind, just 1 minute. I just want to just explain a little bit that there will be a technical advisory committee and a community advisory committee within the Vision Zero task force. And just if there are 4-prong goals. Deaths and serious injuries caused by traffic crashes are preventable. Human life and health should be prioritized in all transportation systems and in all aspects of transportation planning and design. Human error is inevitable and transportation systems should be forgiving. Transportation planning should focus on system level changes to influence all individuals' behavior, and speed is a highly important factor in crash activity. So those are things that are part of the Vision Zero construction. And again, to Rick's point, we're not going to be waiting for 10 years until, to get to the real meat. These are things that we're going to be addressing right away, and looking at I talked to the mayor of Stamford, and their progress has been ongoing, as they are just a few months into their and into the development of their task force, and they've already made what they think are significant changes in safety areas that are that they identified early that would benefit from some small, whether it be speed humps or a stop sign or things like that. So with that, if anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions from any of the committee members? Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's really not a question, but it is a comment. So I think that we're taking the right step here to address an immediate concern that has affected our community so seriously in the past few weeks. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that our first responders witnessed, the aftermath of each and every one of these episodes. And I would just hope that we have provided the necessary resources and made them available to anybody who encountered any of these horrific scenes that really you had no choice but to respond. And I think one component of Division Zero is in the likelihood that there should be another tragedy. There's steps enumerated to address the concerns of those who unfortunately have to respond to provide support services for the men and women of our public safety departments to address these. I think that is a crucial component to this. That's why we employ the most professional staff who have the skills necessary to first try to perform life-saving techniques, and if not possible, to act quite professionally in any type of investigation going forward. So thank you for the opportunity to express my viewpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Any others have any questions or comments? I'm looking. Okay. Okay, thank you, both Mr. Ledwith, in terms of putting together the team and really working with other cities or towns in terms of putting the task force together and how to address this very serious issue. I know we've discussed the number of accidents in town every time we meet, every time we have a committee meeting. And it seems like when we meet again, it's worse than the meeting before. So clearly something is happening And I would echo Mr. Davidoff, between PD and FD, everyone is doing a fantastic and a bang up job, especially with your response time and the number of tragedies that both our men and women have had to deal with, especially this past year, but really since 2020, it just seems to continue to compound. And we'll get it right. It's going to take some time. It's not going to be overnight. And with our town, because we have the number of ongoing training for our team, we seem to always be ahead of our own expectations. So I just look forward to the outcome, and with community input, as well as our town leaders and what the consultants will be able to show us in terms of a guide and some direction. I think we'll begin to alleviate some of the fears that not only the people that are sitting around this table, but our community as well. I've shared that I walk, and what I observe is certainly more speeding above our posted speed limits, and our motorists not paying attention to our pedestrians, in spite of all the efforts that we have put forward. So it's a work in progress, and we'll continue to be diligent. Mr. Zdeno, did you have any questions or comments? Okay, you're all set. All right. Okay. Thank you. We'll move on then to Ms. Chairwoman Morales and the Civilian Police Review Board update.
Okay. Well, good morning again, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair, for inviting me to participate in the public safety meeting today. So I am the chair of the Civilian Police Review Board, and with me today here is Robin Keller and Matthew Horowitz. So I was asked to speak about the experience so far and the participation of the West Hartford Police in the board, in the Civilian Police Review Board. So I honestly have nothing but a really good review of the interaction and the work of the police department. So we are a 7-member board with 3 alternate members, and I have to say that the town council did an absolutely great job in selecting the members of the Civilian Police Review Board. Everyone is very involved, even the alternate members, in every meeting, in every report that is reviewed, in every task that we endeavor to accomplish, and so on. So when the police department presents the reports that we must review, they are thoroughly read and questioned. There is always participation, and we have worked very closely with Chief Riddick, AC Ricobon, AC Terra, Lieutenant Bifiades, and also Lieutenant Moffo. So the reports that have been presented so far are really outstanding and extremely organized. They're very thorough, very well written, and with every report that we read, we all get better at evaluating the reports, right? So we have made suggestions to the chief and the assistant chief, and they have heard us. We have made certain requests that if there are any bias, like if anybody is related to anyone, it should be stated up front. Little things like that we have picked up along the way. And so far, everyone at the police department, including the authors and the investigators, are very open to provide us with even better reports. But I have to say, from the onset, the reports were very, very well done. I read a lot of reports and memorandum of decisions in my job, and I have to say, the reports that we evaluate have, very high caliber from my experience. So we have worked together. Let me tell. I believe that you have seen our 2021-2022 report. We provided it both to this committee, to the town council, to the town manager, and to the police department as well. So in that report, we documented that in the first year we reviewed 5 cases. It's picking up because so far this year, since June of 2022, we have reviewed 6 cases. So and so far we have upheld every report. We have sustained every report that has come our way. The assistant chief as well as the chief are always available. We do question them a lot during our sessions, during our meetings. So I think, yeah, so far we haven't had any issues to send any report back with any comments. The comments that we have made mostly has been stylistic with regards to the report. About information that we wish to have contains in the reports. But I think that I'm going to let my colleagues here speak, Robin and Matthew, and see if they have anything to add. And we are, of course, here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chairwoman Morales.
I guess I can add, I mean, I agree with everything that Alonda has said, and I think we're also lucky that to have a chair like Alonda, who really has done a great job of organizing the committee and really moving it forward from square zero. The only thing I would add is the other thing that I find very impressive is that I'd assume that all the complaints we would receive would be complaints that were initiated by citizens. And in fact, in addition to those, we've received a number of complaints that have been initiated directly by the department, by the chief and the assistant chief. And I just find that very impressive because I think it reflects that the department is very proactive, and there have been occasions apparently where the department has seen issues and has initiated its own investigations and has initiated the process. And I just think that's a great thing. But other than that, I agree with everything that, that Alonda has reported.
Thank you.
Robin, I think you're muted. Okay.
All set? Okay.
I would like just to add as well, I've been in West Hartford for over 27 years, and I would tell you my experience and my little family experience with the police department when I began to live in West Hartford wasn't that pleasant. And I have to say that I think one of the objectives of this board has been that we have a better relationship between community and the police department. And I have been very surprised. And I, as a member of the community, am very pleased about the professionalism of the police force today in West Hartford. Very respectful, very professional, very, very refined. I have to say that too. So I'm very pleased. But if you have any question of me or any one of the board members present, please let us know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there any questions or comments for Chairwoman Mayor?
I just want to thank Linda for her leadership, and we rely a lot on our volunteers, our community members, to carry a big weight and big responsibility for the community. And Miss Blank, Councilwoman Blank's Chair Blanks, and I selected the members of this Civilian Review Board, and with great care. We had incredible interest. We had, I think, 90 applicants, right, Ms. Blank, something like that. And we really took a lot of thought and care. So I want to say that we wanted to make sure that these were people that were going to be committed to holding police accountable, which is something that our chief has been very, very much, in great support of. And we have had a great team to, great commission to look at this. And I'm very impressed with your commitment. I'm grateful. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Matthew, for all that you do in the whole Civilian Review Board. But I want to first and foremost thank the leadership of our police department for creating, for being such great partners in this journey, and also and being so transparent and supportive of this Civilian Review Board. So again, I think this is an example of what can work in the state and how this can work. And I'm just really grateful to our professional our police department. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Chief.
Hi, Chief Riddick. I just want to thank the members of the CPRB for accepting the invitation and coming on this morning. And it was a fabulous job done to select this team. One of our concerns on the police department was, how serious will the board take these things? People have their own lives. Our reports are detailed, and it can be sometimes complicated. And we knew there'd be a learning curve. But if people don't read the reports, it'd just be a waste of time. And I can tell you that several members of this board, they read these reports thoroughly. And it's not just superficial questions, as Madam Chair had mentioned. They get into the details, and not bragging. I think our reports in advance, we told the panel they'd be impressed with our reports, but they brought us to another level. They really did. And what happens sometimes is when you're in the police world, sometimes you use police jargon and you don't even realize it. And just some of the simple requests that they had just made sense, because you have to write the report, not just, even though it's an internal document, it is open to the public. And their suggestions were really poignant and relevant, especially, Madam Chair, when we got to the relationship part, where some members were married or there are siblings. Yeah, we know this. We weren't trying to, as the board recognized, try to hide anything. And she said, well, why don't you just explain it? And we're like, duh. You're right. Something ingenious in its simplicity, and it helped make the reports flow that much better. So I want to thank them for their commitment, their dedication, and their professionalism too, to really take this serious and provide some good constructive criticism and suggestions. And I think pretty much everything they suggested we've implemented. I think we have one minor disagreement on just a philosophy thing, but other than that, we've integrated all the suggestions. So thank you.
You're welcome. I may just add that this exchange between us, the public, the residents of the town who are really part of this CPRB, and the police department, I think it helps both sides, because I think with our questions, the police can see how anybody from the town, any person, any lay person feels and questions what the police is doing. And then, of course, for us is a huge learning experience of how the police acts, what are the rules, what are the procedures, what are the standards, and so on. So I think this has been a very positive experience for both sides.
Thank you, Chairwoman Morales. I remember when this whole process started and it was delegated over to AC Tierra. And we were looking at this large binder, and I'm really just happy and excited, because it's sort of like what we're talking about in terms of this next phase, but how it started from this document and the process and how we saw it through. And as the mayor said, we selected folks that we really felt were going to be committed and that was going to work with our PD. So it's really all about partnership and collaboration. And words are meaningful, right? But if everybody doesn't put their feet to the fire and jump in and really do the work, it's all for naught. So it just goes to show how strong we can be together when we bring all of our experiences and professionalism and really work together for a greater good. So again, another reason why this town shines, because we're really leaders through and through, and leave all that baggage outside of the conference room or the boardroom or whatever it is, and really roll up our sleeves and work together for positivity and for change. And that's always the best outcome. So let's just thank everybody for really being committed to doing great things and having great outcomes and leaving our town better than when we find it or found it. So thank you to everybody. If there aren't any other comments, okay, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would be remiss if I didn't offer a commentary here. I do remember the beginning of this process and the steps that you undertook, Madam Chair, with Mayor Cantor to work with police leadership to take something that was basically a bunch of bullet points on a PowerPoint and transform it into a working body that was going to be accountable to our community. And three things are quite evident from this morning's report: transparency, objectivity, and commitment. And as a result of all three of those traits, I, as a member of the committee, as well as a member of the community, have full confidence that the review process is unbiased, it's fair, and it removes doubt. And as one has noticed, just pick up any newspaper or any news feed, that is not the case, unfortunately, in many communities across this nation. And we can hold our heads up high because that was our goal. That's what we strove for. And as of today, that's what we've accomplished. So to all those involved, I appreciate all your efforts. I appreciate the forward thinking of the mayor and the chairperson of this public safety committee, of our police department, and of the volunteer members who, unlike other boards and commissions, attend many hours of training to become a commissioner of this board. It's just not one of these things you just show up at town hall, say, okay, let's get to the agenda. Okay, what time we leaving, and we go home. No, there's a lot of extracurricular activities that need to be taken, performed seriously, understood, and without that, I don't think you can take credence in the performance. But because we have such high standards and we have a roadmap of how to accomplish the goals of this commission, we are in good stead here. And I want to express my appreciation for all those who have taken the necessary steps to get us to where we are today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Any others? Anyone else? Okay. All right. So we'll move down to the next agenda item under staff reports. Make sure I get this one right. And we're going to start off with Chief Priest with the fire department updates. Oh, hold on, Mr. Ledwood.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you. Chief Priest did provide a written report and is certainly happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, but he graciously ceded his time this morning over to Chief Riddick and his team to, we have a little bit more to talk about from a police perspective this morning and didn't want to take up too much time. So if it was okay with you, Madam Chair, we'd like to turn things over to Chief Riddick.
Okay, thank you. We can do that. And if anybody has any questions, we can catch up with Chief Priest offline. So thank you, Chief Priest. I'll turn it over to you, Chief Riddick.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe, Ms. Linda, did you have something you wanted to say? I know you had lit up for a second before I start.
Well, I was wondering whether, as the CPRB members may be excused,
Certainly.
just in,
Thank you for joining us this morning.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone, and good luck to you.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Here.
Take care. All right, so again, I want to thank Chief Priest. He and I spoke offline. I appreciate his concession, understanding the importance of what's going on most recently. And, I also want to thank, and I know that the entire Public Safety Committee feels this way, but Councilor Davidoff, for your words, because that is part of my comments on this morning, and Chief Priest, make sure in our discussion that when we speak on this topic of mental health, the care and the first responders, and going to these calls for service, PD, FD, and EMS. As we saw a couple of nights ago on the football field, when these things happen, and America had an opportunity to take a glimpse of what it's like to be a public safety person, a first responder, in that horrific incident that occurred on the field. But I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. But we do this every day, every single day. What you saw on that field, and many of us for some of these crash scenes, and we got a lot of experience on this panel here with FD and PD. But I have to admit, that Simsbury one still sticks with me. That was a lot of damage, and I haven't seen one that bad in a long time. Just a long time. And given the occupants who were involved, the tragedy of the family and stuff. And when I say that, I'm, Chief Priest and myself, we're the chiefs. We're not doing the investigation. We're just overseeing what's happening. And truthfully, we don't have the intellect to even handle this. The smart people are the ones who do the investigation. So we go, take a look, and we get out of their way, quite frankly. But they have to deal with that situation, and sometimes individuals have to be, and I'm being very respectful, to the families too, have to be cut out of vehicles, and sometimes it has to be delayed because the individual is deceased, and you have to take pictures, and you have to work around that scene. And over time, they talk about the cumulative effect of pouring these emotions into a glass, and at some point, sometimes if you don't have the proper outlet, it can overflow, and that's manifests itself sometimes in the high divorce rate and alcoholism and drug dependency and everything else you see with PD, FD, and EMS sometimes. So I appreciate the kind words, I appreciate the prayers, but those folks who are doing investigations, who are responding, who are giving the care, those are the folks who truly need it. And I will brag, West Hartford is really good about providing this. I'm sure Chief Priest and I, we've been here for a couple of years now, and we like to say we accomplished some things. But one thing I can personally say that was really good already when I got here was the peer support and how people come together and make sure there are people who are taken care of. So much so to the head of our peer support has the authority. They have to notify up through the chain of command, but if they go to a scene, if they feel an officer needs some assistance, they have the authority to give them days off without going through the chief. They have that authority and that much trust and professionalism, that much commitment that the town has invested years ago. This is well before Chief Riddick and Chief Priest, years ago, to do that, at least on the PD side. So I commend the town for that understanding. I commend the previous leadership on the PD side as well as the union side to be part of that and to have that trust that the leaders of our peer support will make the right call and not have people just trying to game the system, because we know some of those folks are out there. So thank you for that. We're going to go forward and we're going to talk about some data and some statistics. Unfortunately in our job, we have to do that to evaluate data, evaluate stats and situations, because how else can we find out how we can get better and to do things? But let us not forget for one moment that these statistics do represent people. And these numbers sometimes do represent families who have been impacted. So I don't want to be in any shape or form disrespectful or desensitive at all. But I want to make sure we state that and understand that from the beginning, that we recognize when we do these investigations the importance of getting it right, the importance of finding out what caused the accidents, the importance of doing the proper enforcement, speaking for the families, and sometimes, and quite frankly, we have to speak for the dead. That's our job, being a voice to the voiceless, to bring some closure. So as we go forward, and before I start my presentation, I have a quick PowerPoint, about 7 slides that we'll run through. But I've asked Sergeant Ed Giacovino, who's in charge of our traffic division, just to briefly explain what goes into these accident investigations, and understand the officers assigned to his unit, they get so much more additional training. They're reconstructionists and professionals, actually reconstruct these accidents. And if he can just talk about the training briefly, Ed, because Ed can be very verbose. So he's very, very knowledgeable. But we get a brief explanation as to the training you do, what goes into the investigation. Then after he finishes, I will conclude my PowerPoint and take any questions. So Sergeant Giacovino, Madam Chair, with your permission, if I can turn it over to Sergeant Giacovino.
Yes.
Thank you, Chief, Madam Chair. So yes, our reconstructionists do receive, extraordinary amount of training, such things as physics, mechanics, vectors, motion in more than one dimension. So a lot of training's needed to go into once all the energy is released in a car accident. So when we come on scene and we have a serious motor vehicle accident, the actual investigation starts right with the patrol officers. They recognize that this is a serious incident. They close those roads for us to maintain any evidence that might be there. The slightest skid mark 100 yards from the accident might mean something to us. So they're good at shutting down the roads, trying to maintain that, and then also looking for any witnesses that might disappear. We know a lot of witnesses are on scene, and then as things start to fade away, they start to move away. So they're very good about trying to identify witnesses, take written statements from them. Once my team comes on, we start looking at the aspects of the road. Like I said, just because of where the cars ended up, that's not where the accident may have started. It could be over 100 yards away. So we're looking for any trace evidence, skid marks, pieces of car in the road, anything that might show that. And then that leads us up to where the accident actually happened, which again might not be where they ended up. Gouge marks in the road from the metal. A lot of energy is released when two vehicles hit each other. As you've seen, the metal bends, hits the road, gouges, and then the cars spin off. So we'll determine what's primary impact and maybe a secondary impact from the cars spinning. There we'll go through, look at those cars, look at any road evidence, take pictures of everything. We bring in a drone and we'll fly the drone at different altitudes to give a bird's eye view of the approach and departure that the cars made. And then this is where West Hartford's on the cutting edge. We have what's called a Faro scanner. Sorry. And that comes in, that makes a 3-dimensional measurement and documentation of the scene. So that'll give us a to-scale computer model so that we could measure anything off of that. It preserves the scene. It does topography of the surrounding area, including the foliage, to see if we have any sightline obstructions. And we can also examine the line of sight. We need to find where that operator first perceived a threat or a danger up ahead. So that scanner's cutting edge. We'll then go through, we take the pictures of the road evidence, we collect everything we can. If the occupants went to the hospital, of course, we send an officer to the hospital so we could get up-to-the-minute updates on their condition to help us move forward and how many other notifications we need to start making. Of course, the family, we try to get with the family as soon as possible and inform them that their loved one was in a wreck. We'll canvas for surveillance videos. Again, not just on scene, but any of the approaching businesses, residents looking for any evidence that might have caught, any type of driving beforehand. Once we clear that scene and we feel we've obtained everything we can, then we actually impound those vehicles. You know, the work doesn't end just when we clear that road. Now we're dealing with the courts, we're dealing with search warrants to get into those cars. We'll do mechanical inspections on them. Was the brake system working? Was everything in good shape? The steering? Most of the modern cars also have a computer that it goes back and it records up to 5 seconds what that car was doing, the speed, the throttle input, steering input, braking. With those search warrants, it enables us to go download that so we can get more of an idea of what was happening inside of there. And the operators, you know, sent to the hospital. We have to have an officer that's been specially trained in advanced roadside impaired driving on scene. With the marijuana law enacted, now we also need a drug recognition expert, another officer that has even higher level of impaired driving techniques they could use to investigate. We have those on scene performing their diagnosis of the operators. So we have all that, and then again with the courts, any search warrants we need for medical records from anybody that went to the hospital. So it's a prolonged and involved investigation, and then unfortunately, if it is a fatality, now we're there with the autopsies. Now the medical examiner can tell us that, hey, the bumper height was, you know, 11 to 15 inches. And we'll look at the wounds. We'll look at how that body, and I don't mean to be insensitive, but, you know, how it flexed, what type of damage we could expect to see on the car from how it went. You know, we'll look for trace evidence of the car on the person. You know, and then we'll get their report. Of course, they'll do a toxicology, so we wait for the lab. So that's why some of these reports can take quite a while, because they're very involved. It doesn't end just when we clear the road and open it back up. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much, Sarge, for really being succinct, because there's a lot that you said in that short amount of time. And Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to, if anybody has any questions for the Sergeant. And if not, I can just get through my presentation. Up to you, Madam Chair.
Well, you go ahead and finish your presentation, and then we could take questions at the end.
Okay, awesome. All right, Gerard, I'm going to try and share my screen, and hopefully this works. All right, I can't see what you guys are seeing. What are you looking at now?
Looks like the first page of the PowerPoint.
Okay, all right, awesome. So this is our 2022 traffic statistics. We'll go into motor vehicle, total motor vehicle accidents. We did a quick 5-year look back because it's important to get data from pre-pandemic, right? And then post-pandemic. So in 2018, you can see we had 2,800 accidents. 2019, we were trending down. 2020, the pandemic years, cars were on the road. 2021, we're coming back out of the pandemic, and our numbers are increasing again, but still lower than pre-pandemic. And then in 2022, which is important, we had 2,400 accidents, 2,414, which are still lower than our 2018 and 2019, which were pre-pandemic. And there's been a lot of attention to the accidents, and it's been horrific and everything else, but we have to have context too. So the importance to see exactly, where we're at with there. So, if we compare from 2021 to 2022, that's actually a 5% increase from one year to the next. But compared to pre-pandemic 2019, it's actually 11% decrease. So again, just for context, I think that's important. Our traffic recalls, this is for the accident reconstruction team, as Sergeant Jacobina was just explaining to you. You can see over the past 10 years from 2013 through now how many times we've called out our accident investigation team. It is definitely higher in 2022, but that number is a little deceiving because of our purchase of the Faro last year. We've actually assisted other towns. For example, we assisted Hartford. Their machine was down. So out of this 10, I believe 2 or 3 are from Hartford. And if we recall last year, there was the plane accident that happened in Farmington. They actually reached out to West Hartford Police Department, our reconstructionists, to assist them with that, with the Faro, and to get some measurements. So that's also included here. So our actual numbers are somewhere around 7 or so, 6 or 7. So again, you see where the average is, and just to provide some context. Our fatal accidents, again, going back from 2013 through now, you can see 2013, 1, 14, 2, and just going, throughout the years, some peaks at 3, and then, last year, 0, 21, we had only 1 in 2019, 0. And as we said before, I know we're talking about statistics and data, but we're also talking about people. So these represents, accidents that are occurring. And if you take the 5 years between 2013 through 2017, that averages about 1.6, 1.8 fatalities per year. And then if you go that average, 2018 to 2022, it's 1.4 as an average through that 5-year span. And, unfortunately, this last week, the last 2 weeks, it was a huge spike for us, but overall, we were actually trending a whole lot lower, down to about 2. But unfortunately, the numbers are what they are, and that's where we're at. But it's just important for folks to get just a look to see where we're at. So this is really a huge spike. It's an anomaly for us, I'd like to say, and occasionally these things happen. Pedestrian accidents. There's been a lot of focus and attention to the pedestrian accidents. So again, you can look, we were doing pretty good. Again, we understand that anytime you have a motor vehicle that comes in contact with a human being, the likelihood of that human being being injured is high, especially as speeds increase. So in 2018, you can see we're up to 32. Again, pre-pandemic, we were actually trending down. 2019 down to 25. You have your pandemic years of 20. Coming out of it, rising up to 28 in 2021, but we had a significant decrease from 2021 to 2022. I hate to say only, but again, we were down to 15 pedestrian accidents. And if you do the look back, and if we take out of the equation the pandemic years, that's a tremendous decrease in the amount of pedestrian accidents that we had. Now, the other side of this is, as you can see, from 18 through now, we did have the 3 pedestrian fatalities that occurred. So although we were down to 15 accidents, we still had 3 fatalities. Bicycle accidents. We've had, again, from 2018, you can see we're trending down, going into pandemic years and coming out. In 2020, there's, it notes here, a fatality. The state classifies, DOT classifies, it was a skateboarder, if you guys remember, in 2020, the skateboarder that got killed in an accident, got hit by a car, hit and run. That's considered a bicycle accident, even though it was a skateboard. So we've been blessed, other than that, from these last several years, not to have any fatalities with the bicyclists. And again, you can see our numbers trending down from 2021 to 2022. Motor vehicle stops. Looking back from 2018, we had 6,048. We really stepped up our presence in 2019 to 7,921. Being out there stopping vehicles. Clearly, the pandemic years and staffing issues decreased tremendously. There was nobody going to work, just weren't people on the road. So clearly that explains that decrease. But, going from 2021 to 2022, a significant increase of close to 95% increase from last year to this year with our enforcement levels. And we're still working our way back up to our pre-pandemic numbers, 6,000 to 7,000 stops. So we're working really hard out there, and it's targeted. We're not just picking random cars due to the data of our frequency of areas of accidents in Sergeant Zacovino. When we get complaints that come in, they have a whiteboard in their office, and they hit those hot spots to respond to citizen complaints, as well as our high frequency areas. In 2022, the top 10 locations for accidents were Albany Ave at North Main, New Britain Ave at South Main, Flatbush at New Park, West Farms Mall area, Park Road at Trout Brook, New Britain Ave at South Street, New Britain Ave at South Quaker Lane, around the whole town center area, Park Road in South Quaker, and South Main near Park. So we're aware of the accident locations. We try to get out there and do the best that we can on the PD side. Contributing factors with the fatalities that we've had this year, and again, we've had several, but these were involved with each one of these in some shape or form. One of these accidents: speed, distracted walking and driving. A lot of attention has been brought towards the operators of the vehicles, rightfully so. But there's also another factor here that we have to discuss. People when they're walking have to pay attention. And that's also a significant contributing factor to some of these fatalities that we have. Violations of motor vehicle and pedestrian laws. People have to adhere to the law. One thing the mayor had mentioned earlier, and the town manager, with the new task force and our goal to have zero, if people would just adhere to the laws, we can clearly achieve zero. And if people aren't distracted and you decrease the speed, all these things, we can clearly get to zero. Lighting conditions, sometime clothing, if you're out walking or something and you have dark clothing and you're in the roadway, that's an issue. We have to use some good, and also lastly, some good decision making. Use the sidewalks and everything else. And I want everybody to know we're not placing blame, but these are actual contributing factors that have happened with some of these accidents. And if we don't peel back the onion and if we don't discuss these topics, we're just going to repeat what's occurred before. What are some of our solutions? And this is just a few. Obviously, this task force that we're putting together, that the town manager and the mayor are putting together, they're really going to have the umbrella and then look at, road design, traffic calming measures, which West Hartford has been doing for years, by the way. So there's been a lot of good work done here. Some things we can start right away. As the mayor said, we don't have to wait. Education and awareness, we could do that on our part. Town can assist with that. And continue to increase motor vehicle enforcement activities and directed patrol assignments that we have been doing. And so I ran through this really quick in order to be cognizant of time. That does conclude my presentation, and I am willing to entertain any questions. And I hope my screen is still not sharing.
Thank you, Chief. Their PowerPoint is still up, but I don't think that's a problem. Any questions?
I can't get back to I'm sorry, I can't get back to my other screen. I'll find it.
Okay. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions or comments for Chief or Sergeant?
What do I do?
Chief, the ribbon is on the top. There should be like an orange ribbon that you can drop down so that you can stop sharing.
Yeah, but I think someone's taking control of my mouse. Yeah, I think you took my mouse.
Okay, here we go. I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Chief Riddick or Sergeant Giacovino? Mr. Davidoff?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chief, for a very comprehensive report with the historical data to explain where we've been and where we're going. Sergeant Jacobino, I learned more in the 3 or 4 minutes of your presentation than I ever knew about accident reconstruction or what happens. And I don't think our community as a whole understands that. They are quick on the draw to say, oh my goodness, there was this accident. This is what happened. Um, a lot of theories, okay, without a lot of supporting data or facts, and that I think is bothersome, and it's hindering to really understanding what's going on. So perhaps just a suggestion that perhaps we could do some type of community um, television or press release and explaining to people all that good information that you gave the committee this morning, so that people really understand the ins and outs of an accident reconstruction. I found it to be very informative. I think if you're more educated about the process, I think you have more confidence in the process. Uh, for me, when I listened to you, it was very scientific, very data driven, and provided the confidence that is necessary to understand the conclusions. And I am certain that the majority of the members of our community do not undertake that kind of evaluation when they learn of any type of situation involving a motor vehicle accident. And I think we would be doing ourselves a great service by educating our community and telling them that these are the professional steps that we take and undertake to investigate. And I'm glad that we have the resources and we have committed the necessary funds for the training and the equipment to provide answers, because I do believe that, as the chief noted, these are people, and families and relatives and friends like closure, but they like it to be based on facts, not theories, or perhaps this happened. But I appreciate all the hard work of the people who undertake these tasks, and I think it's important to recognize that this morning. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Davidoff. Any other questions or comments? Mayor?
Thank you very much. I just want to quickly, I know we're going a little bit over, but thank the chief for the presentation and the context, because I think it's really important to understand that when you have an outlier year, unfortunately, this year was so tragic at such a difficult time. It tore all of us up in such a way that I really, it just shook the community. So, this is important to understand the context. And when I see those 0 years, of course, that we want to see that straight across for the next 10 years, right? And so what can we do to get there? What I heard from the council to Mr. Davidoff's point, education is going to be such an important part of this process, and it's going to be education on pedestrian. One of the things that the chief mentioned was pedestrian behavior. All of those things are really, really important, and we have new state laws that enforce cars at pedestrian crosswalks, but the pedestrians have to be at the crosswalks, right? So all of those things, those are going to be things that we're going to be reaching out and figuring out how to do best. We need to do it within our community, but a lot of people driving through are coming from other places. So this has to be a partnership with the state as well. And the town manager and I are going to work with our delegation and other state partners and municipal leaders to figure out how best to do that, whether it's PSAs and some other things. So I want to make sure that that everyone knows that is something that's very high up on our priority list. I want to also say that Ronnie Newton is on this meeting, and she's texted me a couple of times, so she will be helping to educate our community and on that. And we can work with Renee as well to figure that out. We have made really continued investments into our public safety, our whole public safety departments, and I think it shows. And that's one of the things that I think we have heard today. But there is what touched me most was the existing support for the officers who have all the first responders too, because I know it exists from the fire and paramedics to and the first the police that respond to the scene so quickly. One of the first, when we found out about the Christmas morning horrific accident, both Councilwoman Blanks, Chair Blanks, and I, both of our first reactions were obviously the tragic families and the first responders were all in one thought, and how horrible it is to have that experience, especially on Christmas morning. So I just want you to to know that we all feel how it impacts these young men and women, sometimes not so young, but all the first responders that are impacted by this, and the investigators that have to relive it every day. So, and I also some of the family members reached out, and it's beyond. It's so hard to deal with and to comprehend, and how we were torn up from a distance, and being on scene must have been so difficult. And obviously, if it impacts your own family members, it's beyond tragic. So again, I thank you all for your work every day, and know that this is a real priority for us. The safety of our community is the number one priority, and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Riddick and Sergeant Giacovino. I echo everything that both Mr. Davidoff and the mayor just said. And unfortunately, these fatal accidents just really bring it home when we're discussing on our committee meetings how important it is for the training, how important it is to select the appropriate people, in the very beginning when you're looking at men and women to recruit. It speaks to the resources when you all are discussing with us, whether it's in your report or around budget season, why it's so important for the resources that you need and for the training. I mean, it's just really comprehensive, because when you do arrive at a scene, you need everybody to be in that right frame of mind. You need everybody to be on their A game, and there's no time to repeat. So everybody's got to be very attentive and listen from the very beginning, to whether you get a 911 phone call or from when you arrive. So thank you for this presentation this morning, because it really shines a huge spotlight in terms of what you do when you receive that call each and every day, 24 hours a day, holidays, it doesn't matter. When you get that call, it's like, you're on duty. You're on duty when you're off duty, because many times here on these meetings, we hear the stories of when you have off-duty personnel jump in to save someone's life. So I really appreciate everything you do, when you report, when you share, when you say, hey, this is what we need, or we're down a vehicle, but Public Works can step in and help out, and then how your regional task force help out. It just underscores the collaboration and the partnership that is needed each and every day. And then again, between 2022 and 2023, when we hear about the fallen heroes and how all of the teams collaborate together and provide that support. These are all things that we don't really hear about until this tragedy occurs, and then you have this big spotlight shined on it. So just again, my hearts really go out to each and every one of you, especially your families. because your family members are, I'm sure they're burning that midnight oil or that light and waiting for that loved one to come home, either to have dinner, to sit down, let you have dinner and just be that ear that you can just talk about what you just experienced. So again, you all have that heart and you all are human beings and you all feel it as well. I have a couple of questions, Sergeant Giacovino, is also for you too, Chief Riddick, because what you just explained just allowed me to sort of visualize in my head the team that has to come together quickly when you got to respond to a fatality. And the first thing that I always identify with is the tape, that yellow tape. How do you know how far out to establish, I guess, that boundary and that tape? And then you also have to have a man or a woman divert traffic away. So when something like that occurs, I'm sure you already have an action plan in terms of the number of men and women who are going to respond. And I guess the greater the accident, the greater the team. I think about an operating room based on the type of surgery, or if a woman is delivering multiples, they have to have that team for that baby or what have you. So would you be able to just um, respond to that question in terms of how many team members are usually assigned to something like that? And how do you establish that boundary to put up for the tape so that you can collect the evidence that's needed? Thank you.
Chair. So in regards to the boundary, we do ongoing training with our patrol officers and our patrol supervisors, should there not be a traffic officer to say working, in what we look for. So a lot of them have been through the traffic division and got their taste of what we do, so they know what to look for and what we want on a scene. We always tell them going bigger is much better than going smaller. We could always downsize that scene, but if we lose some evidence from, too many cars driving over it, it's lost. So they generally try to stretch it out as far as they can. And then in with Public Works, we recall them to help out with barricades, detour signs, get the message out to the public. So we always tell them bigger is always better, and they're very good at it. Unfortunately, with the amount of serious motor vehicles we've had and the amount of damage and debris gets thrown, they've had some experience in the last couple of years. So we always go bigger. And then in regards to the actual team members, so everybody that's been through here, some guys go on, they start off in the traffic division as officers, they'll then get promoted to detectives, but they still had that training. So we generally bring in on minimum, 5 core traffic guys, to do it, that are active in here, that'll take the lead on the investigation. We have those other ones, if we need them, we might bring them in for pictures, to do stuff, but the 5 core guys that we have right now on that team will come in and take that. And then of course the drone team is a separate team that we'll bring in. We reach out to patrol to use them for witness statements. If we need to send somebody, as we mentioned, to the hospital, so we'll reach out to the patrol to sit with those people and get the doctor's updates. So it's far reaching. A normal 2-car crash, let's say that, forbid, might end up with 1 fatality. We could be recalling in up to 10 people just to work that one scene.
If I can add through you, Madam Chair. First, when the sergeant referenced guys, we know that's gender neutral. So we actually have female members of our traffic unit, and we also have a female member of our drone team. So we just use guys as gender neutral. And another problem that we have is, as the sergeant mentioned, when you get to these scenes, everyone goes to the scene, right? So you're there in that immediate area, then you have to expand outward after the fact. And that's what a good supervisor comes in, or a good senior officer. So once you get in and render the care and render the aid, first you've got to secure the scene. So before you can render aid, you got to secure the scene. You secure the scene around that immediate area, render the aid, and then you expand out as far as you possibly can, because as the sergeant eloquently described, you just don't know where that accident actually started and the braking actually started. You expand out as far as you possibly can. And we use that also for, major crime scenes, serious assaults, shootings and everything else. You have your core officers who are responding to the scene, but then you tell the other responding officers to play the area, because that person could be leaving. and going forward. And it was also mentioned by Sergeant Jacobino, which I neglected to talk about, is the support that we get from public DPW and FD. You know, sometimes we're taxed. It's jamming. You know, all our units are at the scene. We're still responding to burglaries and everything else. And there's times where the FD will assist us with their big engines and to block the road and keep the road blocked for us until we can get call in additional officers. And you know, John Phillips and his team have been fabulous when we called them in. He had actually had a unit that was working second shift for the tragedy on Boulevard, and they respond within minutes with barricades. That helps us to get those physical structures out there and get our personnel back into service. So thank you, and thank you, Sergeant Jacobino, for a good description.
Thank you for that. And then I have one other question in terms of the communication to relatives. How does that occur? And how do you determine that? Is it usually phone call? Do you ever have to go to their homes? Is it through the hospital, some type of coordinated effort? Not just for me, but for our listening audience as well.
Yes, Madam Chair. So kind of all the above. If the person is ambulatory, they go to the hospital. A lot of times the hospital or themselves would already have called their loved ones. Should it be a fatality, then we determine that through motor vehicle records, any identification on them. We start tracing down, looking at addresses we have in our in-house system, and it's always done in person. We go out, unfortunately on the Simsbury Road one, you know, myself and another female officer on our team were out there and we were tracking down all the family members because one person with the identification was a little sketchy, so we were out there. But it's always done in person. We stay there, you know, until they have another family member to come with them. They want to call in family. We have our EAP support unit, you know, if we need to. So it's always done, you know, in a timely manner and in person.
Through you, Madam Chair, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and the public and maybe some council members are wondering what's taking so long. First of all, we have to make sure, because just because that ID is there doesn't mean that's that person. The mistakes have been made with improper notifications of the wrong individual. So we have to be absolutely sure. The number two, not only do we want to notify the immediate family members, we want to give the family members an opportunity to notify the rest of the family before we start giving names. You know, there's nothing worse than finding out that your loved one or your relative has been killed through the news or social media. You know, social media is a blessing and a curse, right? We discussed this before. It's very difficult for us to outpace social media. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be accurate and to be timely. And that's what we attempt to do. And while I have the floor for 2 more seconds, I know we've been very long. I also want to thank AC Terra, AC Riccobon, Sergeant Amanda Martin, and Captain Maffo, and clearly Sergeant Jacobino for assisting and putting this PowerPoint together, giving all the information, you know, for me. The meetings that we had and many of the suggestions you guys brought up, we've already discussed, especially education component. And, you know, people don't know what we do, and that's our fault. It's nobody's fault but us. We have to be a better mouthpiece and telling the public what we actually do. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Riddick. No, this was very good. This is more than educational. So I thank you all for not only the PowerPoint, but everything that went into the PowerPoint behind it. And then this entire report in terms of how the PD, the FD, Public Works, and EMT and everybody else really come together and work together as a team, especially in these high intense situations. So I feel like this was this was very intense, but it was a good intensity to learn what everyone does and how the effort is coordinated. So thank you. Thank you for this. Anybody else have any comments or questions? I know we're nearing 9:30. The time is 9:23. AC Tierra?
For you, Madam Chair. I gotta thank the fire chief. It was really cold out there and they just kept bringing us coffee, so we appreciate that. It warmed us all up. Thank you.
Thank you, AC Tierra. Again, the teamwork is just tremendous, but this just really highlights how everybody comes together regardless of what your position is, but it's truly is teamwork and collaboration. All right, so the next item is future agenda items. I don't know if any of the committee members have anything that they want to offer for future agenda items. All right, so we will move to adjournment. And thank you, everybody, for attending this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day. And please stay safe and watch each other's back.